Adam, thanks very much for letting us come here today. Can you tell me a little bit about the Willoughby School, please?
Well, thanks for coming. It's really great to see you all. Willoughby was formed in 1980, a school for pupils with severe and profound learning difficulties. And here we are, 2015, we have 75 pupils of all needs, and they come from quite a local area, transported in. We have around 10 teachers and around 35 to 40 other additional staff that support the children. They have medical conditions, we have learning conditions, communication conditions, pretty much everything in the school.
Wow, that's a lot of kids and a lot of different things to cope with. What sort of challenges do you face with that number of children and that many different conditions?
The big challenge is making sure that you have enough adults that are well trained and up for the job to support every possible condition and need that comes through the door. We generally don't know what is coming through the door until they arrive. We get paperwork, we get information, but then we get the child, and that's the most important person to work from with their parents, and we make sure that we have the right equipment, right training, right staffing to support that. The biggest challenge is at the minute, as every school is facing, is around funding and around support from wider community partners.
Where does your funding come from then? How do you fund the school?
Funding comes from the local authority, which is devolved from the government. We run a budget of around 1.4 million. We have over the last 7 years taken out around £500,000 worth of funding, and that has meant that we've had to cut our cloth accordingly. We've had to be innovative, we've had to look at support from other areas, but essentially we're still maintaining our school as a good and outstanding school as recognised by Ofsted.
So how reliant are you on other groups within the community then? So, you know, for your funding, is it half from government funding and half from other support, or how does that look?
The funding itself is batched almost, that we get a certain amount of money per child to put the lights on and get the teachers in. So around £1.4 million a year. After that, everything else we have to go and search for ourselves. So essentially, for example, a child in a wheelchair who grows, needs a new wheelchair, that funding is not devolved into a budget, so we have to go and find external funds to pay for things like wheelchairs. So for example, you come back to school on September the 1st, 2013, and I had a bill for £13,500 for 4 wheelchairs, and there's no budget for that. This year we've spent around £20,000 on additional equipment for pupils, and again that doesn't come from within the money that is devolved. So it is a huge challenge to try and find the right amounts of funding for those children. Things, for example, like iPads that have communication devices on are the coming thing, and we've pushed the boat out, and you know, we've got 20 odd in the school, but I could do with 70. Yeah. So we are blessed in that because our school's so outward facing, we like to be able to show the community that they can come and see what we're doing, break down some of those myths and barriers, and to get them to come and have a look at what sort of vibrant, interesting and wonderful place this can be. And from that, we make links in the community with guys such as Cummins, and word spreads. And we've been hugely blessed in my time here as head teacher in the amount of support that's come in. But those things are often very finite, yeah. And what we try and make sure is that we don't have the old cliche of, you know, a couple of people turning up with a very large cheque and then using the cheque and then disappearing off and the money just goes and sits somewhere. We're actually able to say, come and have a look at what we're actually spending this on, and that's it there.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And obviously you mentioned you've partnered with Cummins for a long time. How did that start? How did that relationship begin? Very
odd conversation I had with a member of staff one morning, one stressful Monday or Tuesday morning, and she said, oh, the fellow across the road's handed me this pamphlet. It's about a company in Stamford who want to do a bit of volunteering, and you think, oh God, volunteering, it's going to be worthy people turning up, doing a little bit and then kind of nicking off. And what happened was we got in touch in about 2007, I think it was, and since then we've had around, I think it's about 5,000 man hours. We've had enormous sums of money. We've had really innovative, interesting projects that we've worked together, and it's been substantial, and I think for me it's been one of the pinnacle things in my headship.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great to hear. I mean, one of the things that we've done obviously is the Creative Suite, which we opened last year in 2014. Can you tell me a little bit about the impact that has had, particularly?
I could take you outside this room now and introduce you to 4 different teachers and they'd say it'd be fantastic. They have been enthused, they've been bemused, they've been fired up, but more importantly, being able to take young people into there and teach in an environment that is entirely different to a normal classroom has been wonderful. We can take those children to the moon and we can take them underwater. In terms of the Creative Suite and its impact, it's been substantial, and that's measured through very formal measures in school, so through formal lesson observations, through learning walks, and through talking with the kids and talking with the staff. We don't put in stuff to just have people come and have a look at it and say, isn't it wonderful, and then disappear. It is a used room, it's not a playroom, it is an actual learning resource, and it's one of 40 in the country. And the difficult thing we have now is if we're showing around prospective parents, we try not to show them that room because they will often make the decision on the school based on that room, and that's entirely wrong. We usually save that to right to the end, and you kind of get these kids going, wow, and can I do this and can I do that? And it's difficult getting them out of the building.
I mean, when the room was first opened, I remember you telling me one of the great things is being able to take kids who struggle to deal with the environment and help them through using the suite. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're very much attempting to desensitise our children from the world. A lot of them are very, very anxious. They find it difficult to interact, to read other people, to read situations. So a number of plans that we've got in place, a number of things that we're doing. We have a supermarket theme in there, and a lot of our children find supermarkets very difficult because of the sensory overload from the noise, the smells, the people. And so we can train our children in the Creative Suite to listen to that odd noise of a load of tins falling over, or the checkout beeping, or the tannoy going. The extension of that is going to be when we come out to the Cummins factory and hopefully sit on a forklift truck and get driven around the factory. We can show children what it's like to be in a working environment. And as well as that, we've linked up with a company who are going to produce smells for us, so we can give children the opportunity of learning about environments who may never ever be able to do that. The extension around that again, and the wonderful development that we've had in the last 18 months is around work experience with Cummins. In 10 years of headship, we struggled to find any work experience for our young people because of health and safety, because of behaviour management, because of barriers needing to be broken down. Suddenly, yeah, come on down. We've now got 10% of our children, because of the work undertaken at Cummins, in work experience, and that evolved from our relationship with you guys.
No, that's great. And I mean, it does have a very positive impact on the people back within our sites as well. I know the young guy who was on the shop floor, you know, it raised morale. Everybody loved it. He was fantastic. I mean, it was super.
We managed to get 3 people on site within about 6 weeks in Stamford. A guy, one of our lads doing the generators, someone else doing lunches, and someone else doing reception work. Now, I've got 2 of those kids who are still with us, and their pride and their self-esteem is through the roof. We have a 14-year-old girl here who is a receptionist in the global headquarters. We have a lad who can stick the back end of a generator on in about 40 seconds from what I can gather. And they are things that are going to be portable, because he's going to be able to demonstrate when they leave our school that they have got skills that are transferable.
So that leads me nicely on to how do we go forward? So as we look ahead over the next 3-5 years, how else can Cummins Generator Technologies help with the Willoughby School's mission?
I think for me it is around work experience. I think it's about making pupils remain part of their own community, and I think it's about that community valuing and supporting those young people, but at the same time very firmly making sure that our children that leave us, our young people, our young adults that leave us, are not overly reliant on the state or on handouts or anything like that. I want them to be a vibrant part of the community, and seeing how Cummins operates with diverse members of the community, I can see synthesis between work experience and knowledge sharing, your Evergreen Trusts, the Stamford College, places like that, where we can go and look at what young people with disabilities are doing. Can we get them into the workforce? Yeah. Can we identify young people who have certain skills that could be apprenticed somewhere? Could there be opportunities for wider work experience for wider young people, those kids that aren't going to achieve your A stars? Yeah. Can they be picked out a little earlier in their education through working with the wider schools and say, actually, he's brilliant at this, but he can't do that, so we'll get him in and we'll give him 6 weeks of work experience, because if that goes on a CV, then that's something that's going to allow him or her to be just 1 foot taller. And if we can make any child 1 foot taller in confidence and ability and the opportunity to find something meaningful and enjoyable, then we've done our jobs.
Well, I'd just like to thank you, Adam. I know that this school has made a big difference to me personally, to lots of other people at Cummins. You know, we all love coming and spending time here and seeing the fantastic work that you guys do. It's very humbling, and you know, long may the partnership continue.
Thank you.
No, thanks, Adam.